Fleeing from the bowels of the tower and the undead fetuses, Carthal carried Kinraglog, followed by Seeker and Hank carrying the halfling Erlan. That's where we left off. This is Jacob with DragonBastard Games. I'm going to be recounting another campaign log for Aftermath. Their way is barred by the zombie monks struggling to maneuver a bookcase down the stairs. Carthal steps forward to help, putting down Kinraglog. They secure the bookshelf in front of the door to the basement and once more scatter caltrops directly behind the bookcase. They cross the board bridge Erlan left behind and flee to Jillian's trading post. It's roughly 2 a.m. on the 33rd of autumn. All lie down to rest beside Seeker, who stays up on watch. Jillian returns, 3 Kenku following behind her, carrying 2 bound hobgoblins. She speaks briefly to Seeker before heading inside. Erlan wakes around 6 a.m., refreshed, and relieves Seeker of his watch. In that time, a few goblins come by, looking for a frog with bright gold skin. About noon, Kinraglog and Carthal and Seeker all awake. Kinraglog quickly removes his note, long thought and dream having twisted correctly in his mind, and in a flash decodes the note from several sessions prior, which reads, "The standing stones are moving. First they get together, but soon the boulders will roll. The field was not always gleaming. It was once rough and scraggy. Arnold." Due to the language barrier, Carthal does not quite understand, though Seeker and Erlan both get the gist of it. Kinraglog attempts to puppet to him with some stones and a shining silver square, but Carthal understands. Rocks kiss like people and leave coins in the field. This aside, there's much going on, and it's honestly forgotten about for many weeks thereafter. They step into the trading post to barter, selling much of the metal odds and ends found in the operating lab. They hold on to the metal trolley, hoping it may be of greater value to someone else. They make a pretty penny and begin to wonder if they may purchase anything magical. Jillian describes 2 magic items, each a necklace. One warns the bearer of oncoming danger, the other safeguards a life, a periaptive wound closure. They're both quite pricey, though, so they debate a while on what else they may offer. Eventually, they offer the truth serum. I hadn't considered this. I assumed they would want to hold on to this for future exploits. At the promise of it, Jillian's eyes widen and slim down again to slits, clearly uncertain. They return to Hank to inquire about it, who is pouting in the river. Kinraglog had earlier reclaimed the chainmail which he had given him, which Hank had been using to explore the river floor. He obliges to look into it and thinks for a while before deciding he knows nothing. He does, however, suggest just trying to see if it works and agreeing on a price if it does. They agree, the necklace of warning for the truth serum. Very quickly, Jillian and her Kenku soldiers discover the Hobbs' secret, which Jillian comes to speak with Kinraglog about. The Hobbs hadn't killed a single goblin, but had been kidnapping them instead. They were taking them to make them strong, correct the weakness civilized life had engendered in them. They did not assassinate Singer Smoothsail, nor have they kidnapped the goblin twins. Jillian came down to confirm their story with Kinraglog, knowing he was a runaway orc. He confirmed his side of things, and Jillian asked if he'd be willing to tell the others. He was reluctant, but agreed to in exchange for Jillian's assistance in hiding his orc hood, instead claiming to be a goblin who survived the Hobb training program. Realizing some potential implications, Jillian fetched some backup in the form of more Kenku and fetched Lieutenant Duval Lamar and some of his men. All met in the top floor of the trading post to discuss. The Hobbs got really loud before Kinraglog went to speak, but Carthal loomed, silencing them. During Kinraglog's confirmation, Lieutenant Duval Lamar called him a liar, revealing that he was an orc to the crowd. A riot broke out. Carthal guarded Kinraglog with his shield. The Kenku guard sensed the upheaval and attempted to restrain the goblin guards before things got worse. Erlan assisted them. Very many succeeded, but not all. Jillian surged forward to open the hatch to the floor below. The goblins resisted, a few landing hits on Carthal and Jillian. Lieutenant Duval Lamar drew a dagger and threw it into Jillian's belly. Still suffering from his injuries in the tower, Kinraglog fled below, followed by Erlan and Seeker. Kinraglog and Erlan hide, while Carthal fights back. Jillian pulls the dagger out and sniffs it, swaying backward, realizing that there's poison on the dagger. She hurls it back at the lieutenant. It strikes him, and he hurls it back again. She dodges it this time, and it embeds in the wall. Carthal advances and sweeps him down into the hatch. Meanwhile, one of the bound hobs breaks his bonds and downs one of the rioting goblins with a single slam. Carthal and Lieutenant Duval exchange blows for a while, knocking each other down the hole, Seeker taking shots with Eldritch Blast whenever Carthal had him stuck in the hatch. Lieutenant Duval managed to knock Carthal from the second floor to the first, dislodging his hat. The whole first floor shook as he hit the ground. Hatless, Carthal becomes enraged. He climbs back up and embeds an axe in the lieutenant, who collapses. About this time, the Kenku have managed to tie up each of the riding goblins, and the hobgoblin, though he's managed to one-hit everyone that he has had the opportunity to strike. Everyone is gathered outside the trading post, and Jillian releases the trilling whistle that calls everyone in town to trial. There is some deliberation. They prove that Lieutenant Duval Lamar had poisoned Singer Smoothsail and tried to kill Jillian with poison too. The proof lied in the caged poison dart frogs he kept in his home. Despite the lieutenant's defeat, he yet lives, and the town votes to execute him. Attempting to dissuade the town, as Smoothsail had so many times in the past from execution, Jillian asked who would be willing to do it. Several goblins excitedly offered themselves. One was pushed forward and was given an axe. Kinraglog doubts his intention and questions him in Hob. When it's clear he doesn't understand, Kinraglog abandons the suspicion that he may have been Hob-trained. The goblin swung down, missing at first, but hit with his second strike, not doing quite enough to decapitate him. He's clearly shaky and uncomfortable, so Kinraglog commands he leave, and smoothly finishes decapitating him with a single blow. Next, the town voted to banish the remaining goblins who supported the lieutenant, but could not be proven to have been in cahoots with him. Following, they attempt to discuss a prisoner exchange, Hobbs for missing goblins, but the Hobbs insist that only death awaits them. The party resists, and as if to prove his point, one of the Hobbs breaks his bonds and flees. Carthal downs him with a quick goring from his horns, and the crowd tramples what remains. After confirming, Jillian executes the last Hob with her bow. Kinraglog retrieves the chainmail from one of the Hobbs, and purchases a linen tunic from Jillian. He wraps the chainmail up in the tunic, and brings the package to Hank as a gift. When Hank receives them, he seems disappointed by the clothes on the surface, but has 6 little boxes he had been intending to give each of the party members, and Jillian, plus 1 for himself. Eventually, Carthal forces him to open the package of clothing that seemed so disappointing, and he realizes it's new chainmail, with which he is very pleased. The party comes back and opens their packages, to find in each a bottle containing a tea-like liquid around a suspended mushroom, one they had previously determined may cause visions, and possibly also poison them. Session ends, still the 33rd of autumn. So you may be wondering why the title is named like it is. The previous session, I understood the group's intention to flee. I began to consider what this would mean. Likely the Gorlings would overrun the zombies despite their barricade, and eventually fall to the waters below, contaminating the water for the town down river. This could lead to interesting political issues that I began to prepare for, but I forgot about the caltrops. The caltrops alone essentially guarantee the death of the Gorlings, and searching for a reason that would not be true seems disingenuous. I had some major plans on how that would affect the town downriver, and what that would mean for the surrounding area. Alas, the best laid scams of mice and men. Kinraglog was still quite injured this session, though. He had 5 levels of exhaustion from those Gorlings, 4 for most of the events that day. This means 4 more days before he's fully recovered from his injuries. He's been kinda hobbling about when he moves, and he was very worried for combat. Half HP, half speed, disadvantage on everything. Super scary. That said, I relish this opportunity for changes in town to occur. It prevents some of the hoboism common to adventures. I'll admit that I was thrown off at the request for magic items from Jillian. It's a small town, but I figured she had some experience and may have something small that she might be willing to part with. I didn't want to flood the game, though, and canonically there isn't much of a magic mart outside of a couple of auction houses in the world. This suggests some of the scarcity and also helps items to be more story-driven, as well as limiting access to items that may not be appropriate to my game. It also helps with the choice paralysis I've seen in some players about magic items back from when we played 3.5 in Pathfinder. The items available are always those that I put in front of you this way. I did still think it important to include something though, in part to suggest the value of such things, and in part because Seeker is particularly bent on gaining power through the conversion of wealth to mystical might. There was a second reason that this log was titled as it is, and that's the Truth Serum. I had no consideration that the party would part with the Truth Serum. In my mind, it is such a crazy powerful item that I would never give it up, but save it for the future. As such, I had no idea that the Hobbs would admit the circumstances. That dramatically shifted how everything was going to play out. I was expecting Lieutenant Duval Lamar to hear Jillian had been keeping Hobbs and insist on execution instead of interrogation, and for that to go down, interestingly, in a political way. That's not how things worked out. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed, and please join us next Thursday for our next video. It may be a log, or it may be a video about how to navigate information on the GM player barrier. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, elect to receive notifications. There will be more soon. If you want to see more of this content, or to help me elevate the quality of this channel, you're welcome to support me on Patreon. That would be really cool. Until next week, have fun.